So today I have Dr. Dennis Kimbro and the best-selling author of The Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, here for an interview to discuss the potential unlocked awards. And more welcome, Dr. Kimbro.
Coming over there for Unlocking Your Potential Awards.
Fabulous. Well, it's an honor to have you to join us as our keynote speaker at the Potential Unlocked Awards, Dr. Kimbro.
Yep, ready to go.
Fabulous. So then, I have a question for you, Dr. Kimbro. Can you share some insights from the Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice?
That book has a life of its own. As you know, David, it's more than 30 years old. And I'm happy to say, and I'm proud and I'm honored that the Napoleon Hill Foundation, specifically W. Clement Stone, selected me. Now, what most of the non-readers, those who bought the book, read the book, took a deep dive into the book, they know that it was Napoleon Hill's last manuscript. And he was attempting to write a black version of his all-time classic that was produced in 1937, Think and Grow Rich. Well, in 1969, he was attempting to write a black version of that book. He got 100 pages into the manuscript, died of a stroke in 1970. He was 87 years old. And the Napoleon Hill Foundation, specifically W. Clement Stone, held on to those 100 pages for 16 years until he reached out to me. Now, people ask, why in the world was he reaching out to me? Well, I was going around the country in the early 1980s working on a book entitled What Makes the Great Great, when I was specifically interviewing wealth creators, high-level, peak-performing African Americans. And I was in year 2 of that book when I had a number of articles written about it. Folks were asking me to come in and speak. And I really didn't know what I had my hands on at the time, David. I was just so deep into the research, into the next interview, going, meeting the next individual, collecting data and this, that, and everything, that I didn't have time to look up and see where I was. I just had mountains of interviews and quotes and information, and people just wanted to know. There was a hunger for it, and I wasn't concerned about that. I was just concerned about the research. And W. Clement Stone reached out to me. He called me up out of the blue, and the rest is history.
Fabulous, Dr. Kimbro. So tell me the importance of unlocking one's potential in light of the Potential Unlocked Awards.
Well, that's critical. And what are you? You are pure potential. But you're not. But unless you know your why, unless you know your mission and vision statement, it will stay potential. I mean, sooner or later, you've got to ask yourself 4 critical questions. The economy that we live in today is what I call the creator's economy. And what do I mean by the creator's economy? We have gone from agricultural age to industrial age, technological age, informational age. Well, now you're in the creator's age, or the creator's economy. And what does that mean, David? You create your own economy.
Yes.
All right. Maybe by the end of this year, or certainly by the end of 2024, you'll have 8 billion people on the planet. So what in the world does that mean? 8 billion sets of ears, 8 billion sets of eyes for individuals to hear your product, to see your product. And you're going to have to create your own economy. But there are 4 critical questions that you need to ask yourself if you're going to participate in this economy. And make no mistake about it, you have got to be an active participant in your own rescue. So question number 1, here I am, I'm knocking on 73 years of age. I'll be 73 next month in December. So question number 1 really, captures my attention. Number 1, where have you been? Where have you been? All right, so you've been on the planet for a while. I mean, everybody's got to give an accounting of their time. So where have you been? The fact of the matter is, if you lived a normal life, David, and what in the world is a normal life? 74, 77 years on Earth. You do the calculus. That equates to 4,000 weeks or 30,000 days. But the bottom line, time is not running out, but your life is. So what is the critical question? What are you going to do with the rest of life that you have left? So where have you been? Question number 2, where are you going? Do you have a mission? Do you have a vision? Where are you going? I mean, who is the most pitiful individual in the world? The man and woman with sight but no vision. Who is the most dangerous individual in the world? With any man or woman, that has nothing to believe in. And there's only, 4 things that we need, David. Number 1, something to hope for, something to believe in, something to love, and somewhere to go. That's only 4 needs, in terms of human nature that you need. So where are you going? Question number 3, why are you here? Why are you here? Well, you're here to serve. And what do I mean by serve? Service is the price you pay for the space that you occupy. Everybody is here to serve. And how do you know that you're here to serve? Because I don't care what you do for a living, David, everybody has a customer, all right? So I'm a college professor. Who's my customer? My students. And what is my number one goal with my students? To activate their dream, to enable my students that they can reach their goals and objectives. So who's my customer? My dream. If you're a doctor, your customer is your patient. If you're a teacher, like I said, your customer is your student. If you're a parent, your customer is your child. And you got one goal, one activity that you have got to knock out the park. Enable the dreams of your clients. So service is the price you pay for the space that you occupy. And this is the formula for service. Q plus MA equals C. The quality of your service, plus the quantity of your service, plus the mental attitude in which it is rendered, always equals compensation. David, do you even know that Martin Luther King and Steve Jobs used the same formula to reach their goals and objectives? And it was around, and it involved service. And what was that goal? What was that, formula that they used? Number 1, tell me where we are. Number 2, tell me where we can be. And number 3, make it that way. Well, if it's good enough for Dr. King and it's good enough for Steve Jobs, what are we doing? Are you going to make a difference? Are you going to make a difference? David, you're making a difference. And everybody will see that, between the 1st and 2nd week of February. There's only 4 things in life you want to do, David. You want to make a difference. Number 1, you want to make a difference. Number 2, you want to make a difference with somebody else who wants to make a difference. Number 3, you want to make a difference with somebody else that makes a difference doing something that makes a difference. But number 4, you want to make a difference with somebody else making a difference doing something that makes a difference at a time when it makes all the difference in the world. And that 2nd week of February, when we're over there and we're in Birmingham, okay, at Edgbaston Stadium, that's a time when it makes all the difference in the world. Why? Because we're going to pass the baton. It's going to be like a relay race. And as you know, David, a relay race isn't won or lost on how fast the runners are. A relay race is won or lost on how capable one runner passes that baton from one to the other.
Yes.
And I'm going to pass that baton to every individual in that room.
Fantastic, Dr. Kimbro. So just a couple of things there, Dr. Kimbro, I want to ask you more. So for a young person who's sort of 35 and below, how would they begin to discover the customer formula, would you say, the service formula even?
Q plus MA equals C. The quantity of your service plus the quality of your service plus the mental attitude in which it is rendered. And attitude is everything, David. Attitude will make or break an organization, a school, a church, a home, a business, an enterprise. There's only one string that we can play on, and that's our attitude. Life is really 5% what happens to you, 95% of how you will react.
Yeah.
How you react. And the one string that we can play on every day is our attitude. Is our attitude.
Yeah.
You have everything you need for success right now. In one hand, you got a dream. In the other hand, you got an obstacle. Well, which one grabs your attention? You go to the top business schools here in the country, and they might even do it at Oxford University there where you are. Go to the top business schools in the country, and there are 3 books, actually 2 books and 1 pamphlet, that they make sure that their business students read early on in their matriculation. Number 1 is called The Go-Getter by Peter Kine, and that book is about persistence. There are 10 different forms of wealth, and one of them is persistence.
Profound, Dr. Kimbro. Your insights, it's just incredible. Your insights are. So I have another question for you, Dr. Kimbro. So as a renowned and best-selling author of the Think and Grow Rich, what advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about attending potential Unact Awards?
Oh, you gotta be there. You gotta be there. And what is the best example of that? When I interviewed Antonio Reed. Antonio Reed, as you know, is a music mogul, a music producer back here in the United States. He was one half of LaFace Records. I know you might listen to Babyface's music. I'm old school and the like. So I spent a couple of days with him in the Bahamas interviewing him. And, you know, that's a great question that you asked. Why would anybody want to go to this award ceremony? So I asked him a similar question, David. I'm looking at his bio, and this guy has made more money hand over fist, but he took 10 weeks out of his busy schedule to attend a business class at Harvard over the summer. That's 2.5 months. And I said to him, I said, Antonio, what in the world would motivate you to spend 2.5 months of your time in the outskirts of Boston, Massachusetts? I said, if you and Babyface lived 10 lifetimes, you couldn't spend all the money that you earned. What in the world will motivate you to do that? And he said to me, he said, Doc, you know, hey, the music business is a business. Everybody's trying to get in this business, but it is a business. But number 2, more importantly, I have learned long ago, the moment that you cease to grow, the moment that you no longer read and study and grow and develop, you'll begin to die. Bang. So when he told me that, I just had my room where I teach at Clark Atlanta. It was painted and they took down my sign. But I had a sign in my classroom, David Hall, based on what Antonio Reed told me. And that sign reads, if you don't read, if you don't study, if you don't grow, if you don't develop, if you don't go to the conferences, if you don't go to the seminars, if you don't go to the workshops, if you don't read, if you don't study, if you don't come in my classroom, sit in the front row, in the first seat, another student will. And the day you meet that other student, you lose. So you asked me the question why anybody would want to come. If you don't come to that award ceremony and you don't sit in the front seat, and if you don't take notes with both hands, another person will. Probably hundreds will. And the day that you meet all the people who did attend it and you didn't, well, you lose. You lose. What better example do we need? There's Nelson Mandela about to make his transition, fighting for every breath. And there was a young journalist who just wanted one last interview with Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela was there, and he's lying in his bed surrounded by a sea of lieutenants and his handlers. And they waved that journalist off, said, no, please don't disturb him. He's trying to rest. And Mr. Mandela, he waves him in. He says, no, let him come in. Let him ask his question. And he says to him, he says, Mr. Mandela, purpose of life. Oh my goodness. And what did Nelson Mandela say to that young journalist? The only way I can answer your question is to ask you a couple of questions. He said, number 1, have you closed the gap between your potential and your performance? That's what your award ceremony is about, David. Nelson Mandela asked this question, what, more than a decade ago? It is critical that you have this award ceremony, David. And even if you had this award ceremony 10 years ago, we're still behind the time. We've lost a decade, man. Because Nelson Mandela was asking this question a decade ago. Have you closed the gap between your potential and your performance? And then the next question, Mandela said, have you moved from fear to fearless?
Wow.
Have you? Have you moved from fear to fearless? He tells you, I mean, the 10 Commandments were not written to punish you. The 10 Commandments were written to protect you. And the number one goal, so many people violate the number one goal. I'm the Lord your God, and you will place no gods before me. Your career, your possessions, your money, your bank. That's not the number one goal. The number one goal is the peace that passes all understanding. Peace of mind. And that's what your award ceremony is about.
Dr. Kimbro, I think your insights are incredible. They are really insightful. Dr. Kimbro, it's an honor to have you on today.